right, everybody, let's kick this off. Let's start going through the in progress items. We'll start with IBC governance.
We had a meeting this week, and we were able to get through pretty much everything on our list. We figured out how we would handle naming conventions. We figured out broad strokes of how we would, approach any kind of problems, and we made ourselves a reminder to discuss sort of the emergency binder, procedures down the road. That doesn't have to happen now, but we do know that eventually we don't want to open up the binders and have them be empty while the tsunami's on its way. But that doesn't have to happen now, so we'll do that down the road. I think that's pretty much it. Anything I missed, Guillaume? Or
yeah, there was that's everything you said. Yeah, and I also shared a Google Docs and Telegram channel that is basically just outlining some small changes to the contracts to allow for freezing in case of emergencies, hacks, bugs, whatever. So I have to implement this pretty much now because it's going to the auditors. Like they're starting tomorrow. They've been essentially waiting on us to finalize that. So since nobody has expressed any issues with what I propose in that document, I'm just going to go ahead, do that tonight, and put that in the hands of the auditors tomorrow. So that should take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There were, for those not on the conversation, there were, we anticipated there may someday be a need to pause an account or pause the entire contract on the chain. So that is, those things are being done. So there will be an action. It'll be straightforward for the BPs to do an MSIG for that in the future, should it ever be needed. But we also discussed more in-depth solutions, like trying to do any kind of circuit breakers or anything like that were mentioned previously. And we came to the unanimous agreement that those were things that those were out of scope for the for what we were had agreed to build. And that if those things need to be built, those can be added in the future, either by a chain that feels that they need them, or by a future works proposal. So,
Guillaume,
that's in good shape.
For all of the topics that were covered, not just the emergency response, but there were other topics that you guys covered on Monday as well. Can you confirm that all of those items are going to be in your documentation tonight?
Yeah, everything is fine. There's naming counts, and we essentially agreed that the chains would use ESIO IDC as a contract map that would essentially have a list of all the other accounts that would be covered, and the naming convention for these other accounts is left at the discretion of the chain. So essentially that covers everything that was pending. So we're all set.
All right. And I'm putting the discuss emergency binder runbook into our backlog. Come back to that later. All right. Next item, adding new chains to the coalition. I know this hasn't been covered yet. Is this a suggested topic for the Monday meeting?
Yes, we did not have a chance to go over that. Our take was to prioritize anything that, like, for example, IBC governance, where it really needs to happen. I don't think we feel much less priority about the adding new chains, just because there's no audits or anything like that dependent on it. So I would say it's fine. It's fine if that is the most pressing thing for next Monday. That's fine. If anything else is more pressing, then we would just continue to move those other things ahead of that in the timing slot. Because this is worth discussing, but not a priority over the majority of things we're doing.
All right. I'm updating the topic on that. Let's see, that is the 14th. All right, I believe this item is closed. We've reprioritized the top development of items. We're now going to discuss the RFPs as separate items, I think, going forward. But the quick update today is, first of all, provable state domains. We've not had time to really develop the requirements on that. The P2P resend, as you guys know, that went out on Monday. We have had 2 responses. The 2 that we expected, OCI and Fudan, through offline studios. With the RAM limitation, couple questions. First of all, there's another item for you, Lucas. Did you have a chance to put together the issues that you see concerning RAM?
Yeah, I'm working on that, and I should have a document for you guys by the end of this week.
Okay. If you can get that to us by the end of the week, meaning like tomorrow, I've talked to Steven Diesel, the ENF product manager, and he believes he can have a draft of the RFP ready for review by the end of his day on Tuesday. I'll get that into the coalition channel. Because this is more of an academic paper, it should be a lot easier for each of you to review it, because we're asking them to provide a solution on, here's a list of problems. And hopefully, knock on wood, if this all works well, then next week we can potentially vote on this RFP to put it out, in the next cadence, I guess the following Monday. And then the last one, secure smart tooling evolution. Ted, was there anything that you wanted to state on that? Or is that?
Well, just that we had asked Denis and the others, Pizza Finance, Francis, and the DeFi Box guys, to come back with 2 one-pagers, a one-pager on the protocol stuff and a one-pager on the smart contract, and they had agreed they would do that. That will then be used. Unfortunately, Bart will be gone for 2 more weeks, but that will be used by Douglas to kind of look at where he might want to recommend we ask for some reductions in scope or in cost. And I think, we also decided we would delay making a decision if we were going to try to split it in half until we saw that data and say, here, come back with an estimate, and then have a separate RFP for the, agree to some amount that we would pay them to write their design, and then come back with a later RFP for the implementation part. But again, it's all pending those 2 one-pagers. That's Douglas. Would that be what your memory recalls?
Almost exactly. I would say I believe that Bart and I will both be reviewing that. And Bart brought in another great point as that we didn't. So I had wondered what the precedent smart contracts we were using as models were going to be, and those weren't defined. That was not required as part of the RFP for them to be defined. But in looking into them, it is important, as Bart noted, that we know exactly what's being made, And it's also important for us to be able to assess where there is where there's some fat on these. My feeling, because when we started this, I was the only one really like trying to dive deep and look into it, so I felt I had a responsibility to be very thoughtful about that for the coalition. And my feeling was that probably due to the nature of this, without a single master contractor, but so many contractors working on so many things, that there was, in certain areas, there was contingencies upon contingencies. And in my view, there's maybe 10 to 20% over cost on the at the highest level developer ranges. Those would be essentially architecting and implementing the smart contracts. Everything else, to me, seemed pretty straightforward and reasonable. So we are going to get that information back, and because the request just to help us know what contracts are going to be using was not included, but is good for us to know going in. If it turns into a significant amount of work, we agreed that it seemed appropriate to forward some costs, some funds to cover those costs. So when those documents come back, we'll be able to move forward and review.
So supposedly those will come to us, I believe, Monday. They might be ready tomorrow. The only issue, just so we're all aware, if we are going to make sure that Bart is included, Bart will not be back in the country and will likely not be reviewing things while out of the country until November 28th. So this effectively pauses this initiative until, and the 28th, he's obviously going to be buried and digging his way out, and I can't prioritize his work for him. So I don't know when he would be ready to do that, which could delay it even into mid, a week or two into December, possibly. I'm not saying it will, but November 28th is pretty late in November, obviously. So Douglas, it would be your call if you felt you had enough data to go forward, or if you wanted to wait, knowing it will delay this initiative and likely until December sometime.
So I will, thank you, and no pressure. I will review that when I'll make that determination when I see it, and perhaps in a brief DM or two with Bart. I feel like it's unfortunate that he's not going to be here, but we have him. He's such a powerful resource for us that it would be crazy of us not to capitalize on his participation if it's anything more, if it's anything other than sort of a slam dunk, and we go, okay, those are all the ones we thought you would use, and that's great, and that clarifies it. So that'll be an audible once I see those results, or once I see those two one-page reports.
Okay.
Thanks.
One of the other things, and this was my mistake, is I said secure smart contract, which is another item, and we just went through that. The other thing we need to talk about is the smart contract tooling evolution RFP.
Oh, completely different item.
Totally, but we had to cover them both, so I just kept my mouth shut and we knocked the other one off. So Ted, would you like to also flow into that?
I don't have an update on this one.
Okay, that's fine. So at this point, there's no update. That's still kind of in the requirements phase.
Do you have any data on that, Jeff? Since you run the early stage of the RFP process.
Well, so this, I think, feeds in with the Antler CDT, correct?
Okay, I have some information on the Antler CDT one if you'd like that.
Well, yeah, and I think that's going to kind of morph into a similar conversation, correct?
I think now I see where you're going with this. I'm sorry for being so my brain being out of control here. So what I've had some conversations with Eve, And so this would be something that if the coalition voted down, I'd scratch my head, but I've scratched my head before. Was kind of called the smart contract tooling evolution RFP, I think was what was voted on by the coalition. We've kind of looked at it as the Antler CDT upgrades. And so Bucky is available. We have some time with him to do this. So what we'd like to do is say, we'll pull this, we'll pay for 100% of it. We're not asking for the coalition to help, because we don't want to put it out for for an RFP, because it'll slow it down. So we'd like to go ahead and have Bucky start working on it. It's what his PhD is in, by the way. We would agree to take this off the coalition bill, pay for it ourselves. That way he would start working it immediately, and hopefully it would be available in what we're calling the Antelope Leap March 31st build. I call it the March-April release. So there's a March-April release coming out for Antelope Leap, and this would hopefully make it into that. And the reason we want to pay for it and just go forward is because the RFP will make it where it won't come out in that. So if you guys, you can vote on that, but you'd be voting on, if you voted no, it would be to delay it and then, write up stuff, send out an RFP, and likely Bucky would win the RFP. And the only difference would be, you would pay 30% of it. So Eve felt that this was more or less like you guys would just rubber stamp it and say, of course, this makes sense. You get something better sooner. But obviously we need to let you think through that as to if you want to do that. We'd like to actually get going and make it one of Bucky's deliverables immediately, because we've recently pulled Bucky off another project. And so now he has availability and he has staff that he could actually drive this.
I'm curious, what exactly is Antler CDT? Is it because we already have a CDT in there? Or what are the new features that come with this?
So I posted an Antler in this group. I can go find it again if you guys want. The last time we kind of talked, like when we ranked this, smart contract development evolution item. I had posted in the group a thing called Antler. It's what Bucky gave the name, because Gettler, Antler of an antelope. It's the name he gave to the debugger, the online debugger evolution that he wants to lead. That's sort of what we thought the group was voting on. So this is the beginning of that. It won't be the full implementation of it, but it'll be the first release of it. If you guys want, once I stop talking, I'll go searching around through our EOS Network Foundation public repos, find his actual write up on what Antler is. And it is the debugger version that lays in its extensions to the CDT. So that would be something we would get out earlier. And obviously we would keep evolving it as we go, but we're saying we're willing to pay for it just to keep Bucky busy on something he's really interested in. If you want, I will post it in the chat. I just have to go find it.
Sure. No, I got the idea, because CDT to me means the compiler, and you're talking improvements to the compiler, adding new features so he can go build a debugger and other more smart contract tooling beyond just the compiler. So
exactly, yes.
Can I point out that antelope do not have antlers? Deer have antlers.
Yes, I agree, because I read that too, but apparently Bucky fell in love with this idea, so we're kind of probably stuck with it. I mean, it doesn't have to be what we release the name as. It's Bucky's internal code name. Yeah, they're horns,
okay. Right? They have horns.
They don't.
You're welcome to use that name.
Are you sure you haven't trademarked it, Douglas?
No, it's fine. Antler does trigger my OCD, much as not using dots in naming conventions triggers some others.
Yeah, it'll be tricky to get Bucky. We clearly won't use it when we go out with any marketing materials and stuff. It's the way that we can get Bucky to understand. That's the thing that you propose, Bucky. That's the thing you can work on. and we'll slowly break the news to him that he needs to call it something else. But marketing won't go with a name that wouldn't make sense.
That's fine. We can only expect him to have PhDs in so many things.
Yeah.
Yes,
Assuming, of course, he doesn't watch the recording of today's meeting. Or else, hey, Bucky, guess what?
it's called Horn now, Bucky.
Or we could call it maybe a kind of antelope or something. But maybe that's Dick. We're stable.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to quickly move us on. So for next steps on this, would you guys like some time to think about it? Do you want to vote on this today? Either way, of course, I'm just looking for the next step.
So Eve has voted yes. I mean, I'm proxying his vote. He voted yes. He would like to do this and pay for it and spare you guys the 30% cost and get something sooner rather than later. And I will post in the group so you can read what Bucky wrote up when I stop talking. So there's one vote in, or do you guys want to vote, or do you want to think more or read more?
Can we always vote for EOS paying for everything? No, actually, I do not want that. I truly do want us all to pay to share the costs. Although I understand this, but even though it may seem counterintuitive, and I am not the official voter for TELOS, I actually do think that we shouldn't just opt for everything to fall on EOS. We should share, any costs that are useful, needed costs should be of the coalition. But I will, that's my point of view.
There just won't be a fixed bid on this one, because without doing work for the RFP, like writing the RFP and then bidding it. So this one, I mean, it might come in a little high, but that'll be okay because you guys aren't paying for it, because we're the only way we could do is be track time and material against it and then try to back charge you. And we felt that that's not fair, right? You don't even know what you're signing up for if we do it that way. And that's why we said, look, we'll take it off the table and we'll pay for it. So Bucky gets cranking and you guys aren't, green flagging something that you don't even know what the costs are, right? So
what about it? So a way to do that would be that split the difference would be we I don't think this needs a massive RFP. We could approve a budget, approve a reasonable amount for a fixed bid, and then if it goes over, then EOS could absorb those costs. What would you think about that?
I'd have to run that by Eve. I think he'd probably be okay with that. I mean, the thing is, what if the fixed bid came in higher, and then you guys paid more than you should have?
Well, I'm not trying to make. Well, then we can apply those to other things that we can figure that out. I am not trying to make things more complex than they need to be, but I do think that we, this thing has been alive for a while now, and I think that there's, I think we're, the marriage is consummated, and so so we need to, it's better overall if we really, we don't like put anything all on EOS. I don't want that to be the narrative of when in doubt, EOS pays for it, because that's not in the spirit of all of us working together. So that's just my opinion.
One of the things you should realize is there's a whole bunch of protocol work happening right now that we're not back charging any of the other groups, right? So like most of the LEAP 3.2 work and 3.1 work was all done on the ENF costs. There was no cost shared directly into the coalition, right? So what we're saying is, hey, we're already honestly shouldering most of the costs, because it's only the RFPs that right now you pay the percentage of. So we're just saying, look, we'll pick some other thing to share the costs with, and we'll make this one of the things we're not sharing the cost with. Like, we're doing all these other features and things. When you look at the 3.1 release, you can look at the 3.2 release notes and see, like, you guys didn't pay for any of the stuff that's in the 3.2 release. So
I know. By the way, this has come up before. I am aware of it, and at the time, I expressed the same sentiment. So I'm consistent on that. I think that I think that ultimately we should, we should be paying for those things. And that's my opinion. So I won't keep going over that, but I think actually those things should be migrated into, maybe the pet, what's done is done, but I think we should figure out how to migrate those into something where everyone is paying their share.
That might be bigger than you guys are thinking, but if we can come back to this topic.
Yeah. That's one guy's opinion. So I'm going to stop talking about it now.
Do you guys want to take a vote on this? Because the thing we don't want to do is say, okay, we're going to go to time and material billing, and then we have to have Bucky and the few people on his team that'll work on this tracking their hours when they're doing this versus when they're closing a pull request. Right now, they'll just do this and get it done. And if we tried to be fair, and I really thank you, Douglas, for what you're proposing. If we tried to be fair and say, okay, we will now track all of the hours that Bucky's team does. They don't really track their hours right now per se, unless maybe ARIG did for the IBC or for the incident finality project. In general, Bucky's team doesn't do that. And when you win a fixed bid contract, you don't necessarily track your hours because you're just agreeing you're going to get done whether you ran over or whether you made a profit on it. So really the only thing we can approve today without going back to Eve would you guys be okay if we just took this one and maybe we agree to push the next thing down in the priority list into the RFP process and have the coalition share that? We're just saying it's just easier for us and it allows us to make faster speed if you let us just take this one now so that we can start progress versus RFPing it, which would mean it won't come in the next release.
So from my perspective, Ted, I think that I'm definitely okay with ENF making the decisions regarding which projects should be discussed as something we need to share the burden of versus the ones that you just want to do yourself internally and just move quicker. I do want to also mention that as much as we want to contribute as well, and I second what Doug says, we should discuss a way to have a way to monetize these upgrades, not only from the coalition, but also from other chains that would benefit. One of the model that we can consider is something like, the newest version of, let's say, Antelope goes out and it is available for purchase or subscription or whatever, or some contribution if a chain wants to use it for the, let's say, 6 months, right? And after 6 months, it's available for free. So it's a model that we could consider, right? Where changes that are coming out very quickly, and if chains want to stay up to date very quickly, then they can do that. But you need to be part of the team that contributes, right? Versus if you don't want to contribute, you want to get your stuff for free, great, but you're gonna get your updates 6 months or maybe longer, right? You need to wait for these key features.
So to bring
just a quick note on UX side. We would definitely vote yes on this proposal as it was presented by Ted, and very grateful to the ENF team and to the EOS stakeholder for shouldering that cost, that burden. And I understand completely like the situation as well, like having a guy like Bucky available to do what he's specialized into, I think is a no-brainer. That doesn't need to wait any longer, and this is very useful work as well. There's probably a need, I think, somewhere down the road to maybe like work a little bit more on the cost, I guess, like cost burden that each chain pays, and it would probably make sense to try to, as much as possible, to kind of try to include the ENF development activities that have to do with Antelope, and to essentially just try to funnel that into the coalition as well. So there's a bit of work that needs to be done there. We would probably have to readjust the numbers, and also to leave some room for additional chains that may want to join, because that's also something that's on the back burner, I guess. But it will happen. There's already a few that reached out, that expressed interest. So if we do a bit of work on that framework, and if we come up with a slightly more put together game plan, I think we can resolve all of these issues in one fell swoop, and have essentially the ENF basically their contribution be recognized and factored into the whole framework, basically.
That's great. Thank you, Guillaume. And I do recommend that all of you go and read the release notes of the releases, and you'll see the incredible amount of work that gets pumped into the core protocol for each of these releases. The 3.2 release notes are pretty exciting as well. And that's another topic. Maybe Jeff, you can add that topic to the board. That's not something Eve is pushing for, of this, equity of everybody getting there right away and, splitting the costs up. So sure, that's wonderful. We're also trying to be sensitive that, there's a certain amount that people are willing they can fund at this time. But obviously, if we add more chains and we take the number up a bit, and then we should also probably even go deeper into what is going into each of these releases, because you're just a ton of backports and performance enhancements went into 3.2, and so part of the reason we pay for it is we're not spending hours getting votes on every PR and every piece of work that's getting done. But obviously, if you were paying literally a share of all the engineering work, there should probably be more of that, which might slow things down a little bit, but it's a good conversation to have. And so maybe Jeff can put some type of discussion like that on for a future call when Eve can actually make it.
Yep. So this conversation went in two directions simultaneously, and one direction was the long-term model, which I've now added to our backlog per several of your requests. And then the second one was the immediate vote on this. I think if we could go back to Jesse and Lucas, do you guys feel comfortable voting?
Yes. It seemed like Lucas voted yes.
Yes, that's a yes. Correct.
Okay. Jesse?
Yeah, I'll vote yes, and throw in the extra 2 cents that resonate with Noam said, that we need to address in the longer term. So I'm glad we have that in the backlog. I'll point out we have discussed that before a few times. What I've said is the plan that exists to do some cross training where we can enable more developers to not just understand the technology and get that explanation so they can contribute, but also there's a process element to that where we have engineers that could contribute to not the level of things like you talk about Bucky doing with CDT, but everything counts. And if you free up the easier stuff from ENF engineers, they can work on the harder stuff. We have people that could do things to help, and we just need them get a little bit of that education, and then just get formally brought into the fold of the process so they can where possible help contribute to that core development. And obviously there's financial aspects as well, but when I brought up before, maybe we could have some of our engineers just help with issues throughout sprints and participate in the capacity there. You seem to be thrilled at that idea as well. So where we maybe can't contribute millions of dollars, we can contribute where we can. So
a couple of things there, if I may. First of all, we do hold a meeting where we're kind of going through the backlog and grooming the backlog and then seeing how things are going. We're doing this in 2-week sprints. We welcome anyone from TELOS, WAX, or UX Network to join those calls. Second item, and Jeff, I don't know where we put this one. I'm sorry. There was an education thing that I just didn't have updates, and I didn't have updates, and I don't know if we iceboxed it or what did we do with it? Where it was talking about training,
The developer onboarding and development workshops.
Yeah, where's that thing? Oh, it's the thing
Literally
you have.
the next thing I was about to open. So good segue.
All right. Well, I do have an update there if that's acceptable.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so I can forward to you, Guillaume. I can forward to any of the members of the coalition an outline that Phil Mesnier, for any of you that know who Phil Mesnier is, he's one of the early members of OCI. OCI is our #1 partner that kind of helps build a lot of this stuff other than our own development team. They have agreed to build a training program. We have the outline of the training program written by Phil Mesnier. Phil was one of the original engineers that was on EOSIO at Block 1. I'm not sure exactly why he rolled off the account, but he is a partner level person at OCI, very senior there. He believes that for certain the training program will be ready in January. He thinks if we can really push through the contract, which it's a confusing contract to say the least. It's very creative the way they came up with the payment model. That maybe he could get something in December. I think that's kind of pushing it. Like mid-December is maybe mid-December, but then everybody kind of goes away for the end of December. So I'm thinking January is real. I'm happy to forward the outline. It's not the whole training program, but it's the outline of the training program. Obviously, if we wanted to give feedback, I've gotten their agreement that they would allow UX Network folks through, and I think possibly, and I that was long ago. So Guillaume, please don't worry, I wasn't bringing you up in the last call after you and I talked. I've left you kind of out of it. But the goal was that we have 5 new engineers that don't really understand the core protocol other than learning from Matt, Bucky, and REG, et cetera. So we're going to put those 5 engineers through it. OCI's goal is to have more engineers, and so they might even put some training through. What they want is for us to pay the training of their engineers to go through, is how they will then allow our engineers to kind of go through for free. But once the engineers are trained up on their side, we have to then hire the engineer, even though we paid for them with a partial discount to go through the training. Then we agreed to have them work, as consultants. I think we're employing on the equivalent of about 5 engineers full-time from OCI right now as well. So, I think, Guillaume, you were kind of hinting that you might start to hire a few OCI people. Obviously, They have this training program. If you paid to push them through the training, then they train your other engineers kind of for free. You have to pay for the trainer and stuff like that, but you're not paying, you're not paying per person. You're just paying the hour that their trainer does of the training or the whatever. We're not sure we're going to land on that model. I have to kind of prove it out to Eve. Bart loved it. Bart's very supportive. So Bart and I believe we're going to get Eve to agree to training. Like, yes, we'll do that. Whether we go with a completely different revenue model where we say, look, we don't want to pay your people to go through training. We'll pay if we hire them, but we'll pay some other fee per training. And it's about a 5-6 week training program per person. So typically, many of you seen, real high-end tech training, like when you go off to, back in the day when I was younger, I went off to tech training at Sun Microsystems. But for those of you that even remember that company ever existed, and it was like, between $1,500 and $4,000 a week. So you can kind of see like there's a precedent set for kind of training. Now, obviously, today you can get on lynda.com or whatever. I guess that was bought by LinkedIn. You can get on to udemy.com and you can find a course that's pretty good for, $29, but they're trying to sell it to 20,000 people. This is going to be a super restricted audience. So I think you'd see if we change that model, it would be in the thousands of dollars or $1,000 a week kind of concept. if we pay per person we train versus the model they're proposing where we kind of pay for their people to get trained, and then we only pay the trainer to put our people through. And if you're planning on hiring a bunch of people, that actually could work out to be more cost effective for you, because I mean, you're hiring a bunch of employees versus hiring 2 or 3 OCI people. Eventually, it'll work out as a savings. So in nowhere is there an upfront fee to pay for the work Phil Mesnier did, which was interesting to me. They did not want a fee for the. So the nice thing, Jesse, is you guys do have really good technical people, and if they wanted to learn core protocol, they could work through some type of process like this. Now, if you don't plan to hire any OCI contractors, that's where they'd have to flip their model a bit and say, we'll charge you N dollars per week of the 6-week program to put your people through it or something. But at least what's going to happen is there is going to be a core protocol level training program that, Bart will sign off on the technical merits of it. We'll continue to work with them to tune it. Kevin Hefner, who's very, very sharp and been with Block One from the very beginning of the launch, will be driving a lot of the material with Phil Mesnier. So we all have an opinion it will be a very good program, and it'll just come down to, if you're hiring OCI people, that's their model on how you'll kind of pay for it. If you're not hiring them, like possibly TELOS may not elect to hire some, then in that case, there would have to be another model that would let in. But we, as representative of the coalition, will ensure, TELOS, if you want to have access, that we'll find a way that you can have access. So that's kind of a long-winded update, but any questions?
Is there any chance that so I know that this is a high-end, hands-on, multi-week training program, which sounds fantastic. Is there any chance that at some point this will be recorded as the any kind of video calls or anything that people can do as a self-directed? Obviously, it won't come with the same guarantees or hands-on content or anything, but just to first to document this great information that's available, and secondly, for people who want to, people in the community who want to, do self-directed learning, that there would be a resource for that. Is that part of the is that under consideration?
Let me, I didn't do a good job of explaining this. So it is mostly, it's not fully self-directed, but there is no instructor sitting in a classroom for the week, and they're not sitting in the classroom for a week.
Oh, okay. I did not know. So it's already video.
It's not self-directed. It's like, you have this objective to use, the person is thought of as being in training for that week. So, basically when they're moving through the program, you're like, okay, you're going to take the next 5 weeks and go to training. And so in week 1, it's like, you need to have these objectives. And so at the end of week 1, the instructor says, okay, now we're going to have you, take this test. And then they look at the test and say, yep, you learned the concepts in week 1, or no, you're still a little weak here. We might have to have you kind of, bone up on some stuff. And then week 2 goes the same way. There'll be some videos that they watch. There'll be some materials that they read. There'll be exercises that they do, like, pull a pull request on this, make a modification that would allow it to do that. That shows that, yeah, they learned how P2P networking works, and they actually could fix a bug, or they could look at something, or could make an enhancement. So it is hands-on from the standpoint that the developer is actually having to read the source code, read the training materials, watch the videos, and take exams, but they're only kind of dealing with the instructor to kind of learn, like, here's what week 1 is. This, you're supposed to read these separate documents, take these quizzes, watch these videos, and then we'll talk to you on Friday and see where you're at. And they do that every week for 5 or 6 weeks. And by the end of that, they feel, okay, you're good enough now to be thrown in the deep end of enough of the taxonomy of the core protocol. So that it is such as it is that way, but it's not like if you've done Udemy or Lynda or something like that, and you're just sitting there turning the video on and off when you want. And it's not meant to be like part-time training. They believe they have this set up where if the person is dedicated for that week, they should have made this much progress in a week. And if they didn't make enough progress, this is how they'll also weed out people of their own, that they're realizing this person, we're not going to give this person to the ENF. If after week 2 or 3, they consistently can't get the material done and pass the exam by the end of the week, they find, other projects for them to work on, because they know, Bucky and Arig and Matt and Bart are very discerning as to whether a person can really pull their own weight or not. So that's why they wouldn't want it to be at your own pace, because they wouldn't be able to tell, well, gee, you're finishing up week now, 3 weeks later. Did you work on it for 3 straight weeks, or did you did you only put 1 day into this, or is it 5 days spread out over 3 weeks? So they really do kind of want you to dedicate the people in training to go through the program that way, so that they can judge whether you're actually making the correct amount of progress in the correct amount of time. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I didn't understand that component of it. I thought it was as I said, I thought it was. So thank you for clarifying that.
All right, so we're about 10 minutes left. Just a handful of items. One quick one that I want to bring up that won't take a long time, but in a couple weeks, we have the Thanksgiving holiday, so many people on this call will probably not want to stop their day. Do we want to attempt to reschedule this meeting earlier in the week, or do we just want to cancel it for that week?
I vote cancel.
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 Same here.
Okay, good. That's nice and quick. The next thing is, Guillaume, if you want to take like 3 or 4 minutes for an overview of faster finality and IBC.
Yep. So this week, essentially working on the just the final items for the release of IBC. I mean the pre-audit. So working on the ESIO IBC contract, as well as the changes that we discussed last week and earlier this week on Monday. So that's all good. We're still waiting on more feedback from various teams that have been working on the IBC server, IBC proof server. So far, Yes Nation is the only one that really responded and that has been putting some time in there. Everything is going well there. I think Dennis was going to make a final look and try to deploy the entire solution and confirm everything is working, but that should be done quite soon. There's on the instant finality stuff. Eric was out for the last 2 days, so we did make some progress there, but we want to make sure that he basically approves the direction that we're taking. So as soon as he gets back to us, we'll essentially have a pretty good game plan for the first part of it. So that should also be happening quite soon. So I'll keep you guys in the loop for more items. But yeah, it's been a bit of a slow week because of all of these things happening, but it's still well under control.
All right, sounds good. The payment from Milestone 1, all good?
Yeah, all good. That was received earlier this week. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, sounds good. Aaron, do you want to give us an update on Wild SDK?
Yeah, sure. It's been a heavy development week and a heavy week working on branding. We canceled the meeting this week, which is going to lead into the meeting next week, where I guess I would encourage you guys to attend or check out the recording afterwards. We'll be doing the initial brand presentation, kind of laying out the groundwork for all of the messaging moving forward regarding the SDKs. And this is the point where we can finally stop hiding things and just do everything transparently. So should be cool. We're excited about it. There'll be some pretty things to look at. And then we'll be diving straight back into code probably for the next 9 months or whatever.
Awesome. Any questions for Aaron on that? Excellent. All right. Any final thoughts in the last few minutes? Great. Well, if I don't talk to you, everybody have a great weekend. Thanks to the greater community as you listen today. And I will see some of you Monday, some of you next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a great
Thanks,
one.
guys.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.